First item of business is to review and approve last month's the June minutes. Any comments, changes? All in favor of approving them?
Aye.
Announcements. I only have a few announcements, but anybody else has any, you can pipe up afterwards. I wanted to remind everybody that the tree tender program that we talked about last month. The Pennsylvania Horticultural Society is sponsoring this program that offers hands-on tree care for training for residents of the 5-county area. It's a 9-hour training, covers tree biology, identification, the planting, the proper care and pruning, and also working with the community. And it's over a three-day period. It's in the evenings. I think it's Thursday. So actually, I didn't write down the day of the week, but anyway, it's in October. Starts on the 2nd. And penhort.net has more information on it where you can sign up.
And I did that program, thought it was very interesting, very well done, so worthwhile.
Good. You did it when?
In the winter, over a couple of Saturdays. They did it.
They're Saturdays,
they do it
okay.
a few times a year.
Okay.
And there were 2 or 3 Saturdays in the winter, and then I guess they do some other dates in the fall.
Yeah.
So.
And were you going to do it again, or you didn't take it? Did you?
No, I think I can.
Oh, okay. Couldn't remember if you were or not. Next, I wanted to mention something that our former chairperson, Brenda Gatanda, brought to our attention, and that is that the Delaware Valley Green Building Council is having the 2014 Groundbreaker Awards on September 18th. These awards are honor those groundbreaking people, organizations, and projects that are moving markets and influencing others to do the same around the corner or around the world. You're supposed to show them what leadership looks like and how your project is advancing their mission and driving us toward a vision of sustainable communities for all. You can see more on the DVGBC website about what the criteria are, but those applications are due in about 2 weeks on August 8th. I think they have these awards every year, I'm pretty sure. Okay, that's the only announcements I had, actually. Anybody else have any announcements? No. Okay. Moving along. Our first work group report will be the Green Team. So our last Green Team meeting was after the last EAC meeting, and that's kind of the way we set that up, so that if any items came up for discussion in the EAC that we thought would be good for the Green Team to address, we'd be able to just take it right in the next week and bring it to them and talk to them about it. So at last month's Green Team meeting, we decided to focus a lot on the green power purchasing, right? And that's kind of the first thing I wanted to talk about, and what stage we're in with that. Sally, Sloan, and I have in the absence of Steve, who took this on originally, have been sort of pushing this forward. And at the meeting, Green Team meeting, we thought it would be wise to invite other partners rather than just the township accounts. See if we could maybe pull some more people that we're close with, so that the RFP maybe is more attractive, maybe attracts better pricing, more bids. So we sort of spat out some ideas, and we split up the pile of people that we thought we should contact. And I tell you that I talked to the fire company, and talked to the vice president, Craig Santman, and he sounded very optimistic. He thought that it sounded reasonable, and I reminded them that this is there's no obligation to join. When you join the RFP, there's actually no, you don't need to follow through with whatever comes out of the RFP. It can be just an informational thing. So the fire company, Wayne Arts Center, I haven't gotten very far with yet. Sloan, you had
yeah, so
two.
We had a nice exchange with.
Hit your mic for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nice exchange with Leo Burnaby from the school district, who gave us a little bit of information about their current power purchasing. They are contracted through next year, but he was definitely interested in participating on an informational, non-binding basis, but basically to help us find out what the options are. The good news is they have, they are a large purchaser. I think it was 8 million kilowatts. So it will definitely put us into a bigger category, and it'll be interesting to see if the pricing reflects that. We need to do the RFP so that it'd be easy to take that out if they decide independently not to pursue it. But I think it'll be very interesting to see what kind of pricing we'll get back from that. So that was very helpful. Appreciate Leo's help with that, and we'll certainly keep him and the school district posted. Also reached out to a couple other places. Mainline School Night, have not heard back from them, and also Haverford Township, and have not heard back from them in terms of what they're doing. But Sally, you did have some success with the Municipal League and some.
Yeah, I talked to a few places. First, I called Delaware County, which buys power through Co-Stars, same organization through which the township buys cars, at least sometimes. So it was suggested that we look into that as a possibility for the township. I don't know if it is a possibility. I also spoke with somebody, the CFO or COO, I forget which, of Lower Merion Township, who said that Lower Merion is part of a purchasing pool through the Pennsylvania Municipal League, and they have a contract which is in place through 2015, and he's starting to look around for after that, but he suggested that Radnor could also look into the Pennsylvania Municipal League option. I spoke again with Kathy Mulroy at the library, who had already expressed interest in, being part of a purchasing pool with the township, and I'm hoping to get just information. We need like account number and their kilowatt hours total per year. I know I don't know if I'll get that right away, but that's in the works. And I also spoke with Susan Shapiro at the senior center, who told me that they already did switch power providers and get a better rate. I got the general sense that she would not object to being included in the RFP, and with it being non-binding, and I guess if it turns out to be as good or better a rate, why not? And I explained we're looking to make it greener as well. So, and I'm also waiting to get the numbers back from her. So that's where it stands.
Ask on the, I think it's terrific leads, and looks like we are going to have something of a consortium, which is great. On the PA, Pennsylvania Municipal League, I think that's a really interesting lead, and I don't know whether we need to follow up and maybe even talk to somebody at the league to find out what's going on. I don't know if it's on the site. I didn't do a lot of work with that. Is there, what do you think are good next steps with?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Is anybody on township staff going to look into the things like the Pennsylvania Municipal League and Co-Stars? Because I thought from our green team meeting that there's somebody was already going to look into some of these other options.
I think we could certainly offer to do some research on that and call and speak to the league. And Josh, your input would be great, but I don't think it hurts to reach out to them, talk to them, talk to a staff person there, see what's going on, sort of big picture, and then township staff can tell us if there's ongoing projects with the league that we don't know about. But I think it's a really encouraging lead in terms of a place that's a natural fit for leadership in this area. So
did you say, Sally, that that Lower Merion, they're part of the power purchase through this league, right?
Yes.
That there was no green component to it, right? It was just standard grid
Correct.
power.
Yeah, it's strictly to get a better rate.
Strictly get better rate,
Yeah.
okay.
But that may not be the only option.
Right, there might
It
be
may
other
that
options.
that's what they wanted. at
Well,
least
I think it
few
was a
years
deal
ago.
that was
Yeah.
negotiated for all these people in the
Right.
pool. But, maybe one way to look at it is, what is their deal? We could switch providers, get a much better deal, and then take some of the savings and plow it into
That's
blocks of wind power or
Yeah.
solar panels for
That's
something. There are different ways to go
I
about
think that's
this.
exactly right. So I
So-
think that's
As far as the co-stars go, I think I tried this before with the automobiles, and I think you need to be like a member to access the pricing on the vehicles and whatnot. So maybe there's a way around it where you can actually get somebody on the phone to talk about it, but maybe
Well,
somebody here at the township that has the account number and the password or whatnot
Yeah.
might be able to get further along.
Or maybe what we do is we try ourselves, and if we get sorry, you have to be a township in a sense, we have, we're an advisory committee to the township, so it's not like we're just calling, randomly. So maybe that's
Yeah.
enough. I think it's worth a try.
So, I didn't mean to hash out too much detail. I just want to give everybody kind of an update on where we were. But just taking a step backwards, just big picture here, we have an RFP that's in draft stage right now. It has been distributed to the EAC as a whole, right? And everybody was encouraged to comment if they had comments, and we did get some comments. But as we start to figure out who's going to be involved in this RFP, might be some new comments in terms of like what you just said, like, well, what happens if our biggest component, the school district, decides to drop
Right,
out? Like,
right.
do we keep our pricing or?
Right.
Yeah, so that we might need to do some further reviews here.
Maybe you could ask for tiered pricing based on kilowatts.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, another general question about the RFP, and I don't really know how these work, but once you put it out, is it strictly informational, or do you have to take one of the bids that comes in?
No, it's
Strictly
definitely
informational.
Strictly
Okay.
informational, yeah. And that's what I've been telling all these
Yeah.
ancillary facilities in there, and that's what's making them interested.
Right.
It's
Right.
No obligation, yeah.
Because there'd have to be an assessment of what comes back, and one might have a really appealing, number, but when you dig into it, it might not be as appealing. So I think this would be the start of a process of assessment, not a binding commitment.
So, and Ben Cooper did get me a list of all the accounts, Radnor accounts. So we have all the account numbers, and I sent some comments back to him for some minor changes, but I think it would be easy then to just attach that as Appendix A to the back of the RFP, saying, here's our accounts, and Appendix B, here's the other accounts that we don't actually own, So it's a good step. I think we're moving forward, albeit a little slowly, but it's better progress than we make in a long time, so it's encouraging.
I don't know if we'll get the account info from the school district. I'm not sure we need it. Maybe just the tiering in terms of if you have this amount.
Well, tell you what, I think we need account numbers for this RFP.
Do we?
Yeah, I think so.
Even at that level?
Because I think these, I've done this once before back in my previous life, and when these companies, when they go to bid on this, they want to see information about your usage in like terms of demand profile, like, are you a daytime user? Are you a nighttime user? Do you use in the winter, summer? They're very interested in more details than just, hey, we use about this much a year, more than we can provide them. They will actually look up these account numbers with PICO and get full reports.
There's similar entities in other jurisdictions. So Lower Merion School District probably has the same profile as Radnor School District.
True, yeah.
So in a worst case, if you
Although
can't
we have
get certain-
geothermal heating and cooling, so they might not have it, right?
Yeah.
So it could be a big difference.
Well, if you think it's useful, I'll ask for it, but I'm not sure we'll get it. I can ask for that.
We might have it
And we might have it
from the previous
from the
inventory.
Right.
Okay, well, I'll get back to you on that.
Well, so yeah, let me know if I need to reach out and ask.
Okay. So other than the green power purchasing at the last green team meeting.
Oh, right, there was also discussion about green vehicles. Again, this is sort of a purchasing issue. So we had a good discussion about, how are vehicles purchased, how are they selected. We're working toward the, integrating a green component into the purchase of vehicles in line with the overall green purchasing policy. So we're working and have asked the township to give us a little bit of a roadmap of how the vehicle purchase decision gets made, what the steps are, and the idea would be to look at that and figure out where along the decision tree we should have an assessment of whether, among good candidate vehicles, we're looking at the greenest option that would fit the needs. It might not be a full hybrid but basically we'd like it in the process that there be a step that somebody is making a determination that this is the greenest appropriate option, reasonable option, or if it's not, an explanation of why that was not selected. So that's what we're working toward. We don't, we're sort of just starting to get a feel for how the decision process is working, but that's where we are. And we'll, report back hopefully as we get a little bit more information.
Yeah, and that discussion stemmed from the broader discussion of how do we get this sustainable purchasing policy that we created last year. How do we actually get this implemented and working in the township? We know that it was approved by the commissioners, and it is a piece of paper right now.
Well, it's also official policy.
And it's official policy, but the key is now going to get the various departments that would actually buy things trained on its use. And the biggest one that we talked about obviously was the vehicles. So that's where that is.
Did we also discuss the library, or was that separate?
I don't think we talked too much about the library at the meeting, but I want to talk about it tonight.
Okay.
But we can talk about it right now if you'd like. That'd be fine. Sally, you want to give us an update on where? Well, I'll let you talk about it.
All right, so it was suggested, I guess, here last time that we come up with a list of suggestions to pass on to the appropriate person at the appropriate time about green measures that could be incorporated into the renovation and possible addition. So, as you know, I sent around an email looking for some suggestions. I basically just heard from a couple people and then came up with a bunch of other ones. And so I'd still welcome any additional input, but so these are 9 sort of substantive suggestions, such as selecting Energy Star label, heating equipment, and things along that line. As a preliminary step, I think Sloan mentioned to me once a while back the idea of including the new green procurement policy in the RFP that goes out for the architect, and if there is one for the general contractor, or whatever RFP goes out for this. So that certainly makes sense. And then another one that's more procedural than substantive, even though we heard from Kathy Mulroy that she was told that it wouldn't be viable to try and get LEED certification, I'm suggesting that we leave the option open, since there are at least, well, there are 3 possible types of LEED certification that could, for which this kind of project could be eligible. There's also Energy Star certification, which frankly I'm not sure if it would apply to this type of project or not. It's a somewhat less rigorous standard than LEED, and obviously, focusing on energy. But that just, and if nothing else, perhaps I could change the language here, but even if we're not suggesting that the library try to get actual certification, at least these systems and rating systems and, bodies of knowledge could be sources of information for whoever's hands-on down the road.
So, just to back it up a step, when Kathy was here, we learned that this was for the old part of the library, this was just a kind of a renovation project. The roof was staying, the walls were staying. The only thing that was really changing was the windows, I believe, and they were getting a facade, right?
And the whole HVAC system.
Right, exactly, and then a new HVAC system. So you're saying that there are LEED certifications for projects that are mostly renos, not?
Well, yeah, there's building design and construction, which would be like the big, may or may not apply. Then there's operations and maintenance. That's a certification for existing buildings. May or may not apply here. And then there's also interior design and construction, if we just want to focus on the interior. Again, it may or may not apply depending on how big the addition is going to be and how big of a renovation there's going to be. I got a note from the U.S. Green Building Council because I wasn't even sure if any LEED rating system would apply to this project, and it sounded like, possibly any one of the three might apply.
Mm-hmm.
So they may or may not, but at least those reference guides have all kinds of, very specific, detailed suggestions about things like, boilers and windows and all kinds of stuff like that.
Is there a significant cost to get the actual certification as opposed to the things you do?
There is a cost. I don't know offhand what the number is. There's a filing cost. There's various submittals. I don't know if that's. I don't know if the perception was that alone would be too much, or if it was just that when you're shooting for this kind of certification, you may choose things that cost more than what you might otherwise choose. I'm not trying to ram anything down anybody's throat. I'm just suggesting at least this could be a source of information.
Right.
So the comments on, specifically the ones that I made, I'm thinking now, in terms of, you should be selecting this type of HVAC system or this type of water heater. They seem really kind of way too early in the process, doesn't it?
Well, see, that's sort of what I'm not quite sure what we're trying to achieve, because for another thing, LEED or any one of these sort of green building approaches is they really heavily stress getting the team together and getting the engineer and the architect and the contractor and everybody talking and on board. And we don't have those people yet. We don't even know what project we're talking about yet. So it seems to me a little preliminary to sort of give this list to somebody. It's good to be thinking about it and, certainly welcome other ideas. I need to go back to the library. I haven't even really looked at it thoroughly. Something else might be clear as a bell, but, it might be a little early to try and give specific suggestions.
Well, I think that sounds right, and it sounds like if you might be able to stay involved with Kathy as the project develops and offer to, sort of be a liaison to, their project and help us think about it, help them think about it. They have constraints and they don't know what their total budget is and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of open questions, but at the same time, the hope would be wherever they come out, and however large or small the project is, at least we're doing, making reasonable suggestions for that project, and we're hopefully involved, from a fairly early stage, so that we don't miss an opportunity that wasn't too expensive or fit their needs, and we can So I think the best would be just sort of stay in touch with Kathy and get some feedback. What's helpful? What how much detail does she want? Does the library want at this point? Maybe get some sense of the timeline, and it may turn out that they don't need that kind of what Josh was suggesting, that kind of detail for 2 months, 3 months, whatever. But we will have some specific suggestions once once they're ready for them. Does that make sense? That you're
Yeah.
sort of, it's not just a one and done, here they are, and, we go off, but you're sort of staying in touch with them and hearing what's going on, learning how it's developing.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Well, we'll crown you the official library liaison. Okay, so moving along, sustainability. This often is a place where Sloan would give something, a blurb.
I don't have anyone.
Half this nation is in a severe,
I know,
severe
I know,
drought.
I know.
And you,
I know, including my brother who lives in California.
Oh,
in San
dear, yeah.
Francisco. But no, I don't have anything on
Okay.
on water census month.
open space, a brief summary from you, Ann, would be great.
Well, Skip and I both missed the last meeting of the Open Space Committee, but what's happening at this juncture is members of the committee are interviewing key people around the township, so people in a variety of positions around the township to get their feedback, and specifically to get them to comment on the draft plan that the consultant has put forward, with an eye to finalizing the proposal and putting it forward in September, so we're on that schedule.
And who's doing the interviewing?
Members of the committee.
Okay.
Each of us has been assigned a small number of key persons to talk to.
Oh, all right. Great. Ann, can you stay on and talk about Birdtown?
Sure.
Any news from them?
Under Birdtown, a couple things. One is that there's the bird-focused series of movies at the library. So there are four movies over the course of the summer. I don't have the dates right in front of me, but you can find those dates on the library website, certainly, as well as, I think, on the Birdtown website. The other matter that we've been talking about under the Birdtown umbrella is the Wren grant. So the paperwork is in the process of being signed and returned, so we're officially now on the clock and working on the Wren grant. And we're still working with the township to identify the precise location of the rain garden on the township grounds. So that's going to be happening over the next few weeks. And on a related note, I was told, I don't have any further information on it, but that the people who have been working on the play area on the baseball side of the creek across from the township building are including a rain garden as part of that project as well. But there's far less stormwater runoff on that side, so it's far less critical. So,
Who ended up going to that training with you?
no one?
What's interesting about that playground, wasn't that supposed to be parking? And that was going to encroach on the riparian setback?
I don't think they've planned parking for over there. The parking plan that was floated earlier had it between the access road and the creek on
Okay.
the township building side.
On this side, okay.
Yes, so one of the things that we need to
That's still pretty
clarify-
close to the creek on that side, too, though.
Yes, one of the things that we need to clarify in order to fix the location of the rain garden on this side of the creek is exactly where the parking's going to go, because the last thing we want to do is to invest in a rain garden project that then gets paved over when they decide what to do with parking. So that's still a little bit in flux.
Hypothetically, you shouldn't build the parking because
It's not
it's
my
just
call.
too close to the stream, no matter what you do.
The last suggestion that I heard for parking was that they were going to take out and relocate the skate park and put parking there, which would pull it back at least a little bit from the stream. Anyway, so I think that's the full update. Sally asked about the training, and no one was able to line up to go to the Wren training in June of this year. One of the obligations under the Wren grant is to attend the meeting, which I believe is June 9th and 10th of 2015. To report on what our experience was. And I hope that everyone will look at their calendar, because we get two seats there. And for anybody who's interested in environmental projects, you get to learn what all the exciting projects that are going on around the state. It's a great networking opportunity. It was really a shame that nobody could go to this June. It's held mid-June. I think it's, as I said, the 9th and 10th, and it's at Dickinson College. So it's about a day and a half of time. You drive out the morning of the first day and you're home by dinner the second day. And it really is a wonderful experience. So if somebody can look ahead to going with me next year, I would be very glad to have some company.
Thanks, Ann. A quick question. The location for our project, the Wren project, does it have to be here in the Township building?
That's how we proposed it, and that's what was approved, so yes.
Yes, it does, okay. But the scope of it, the size of it, the location of it can all change,
Yes, exactly.
but just not the location on the
right.
ground, okay.
Because part of, I think, what persuaded Wren to approve the grant was the visibility that a project would have at the Township building. So if we moved it someplace else, we would lose that visibility.
Hmm.
So, yes, we're committed to doing it here.
Okay. I wanted to raise a quick point about the rain garden that we installed over at Cowan Park last year. I drive by it all the time, and it is really tall. It's really kind of impressive. I mean, it could be 6 foot, 7 foot tall in some spots. But I was wondering if you thought it would be wise to do like a 1-year look back, or have somebody who knows what they're looking at come take a look at it, assess it to see whether or not if it actually developed into the kind of garden that they thought it was going to be when it was first designed, whether all the plants came up. I mean, I can see there's at least 3 of the ones that we put in are up, but I think we put in 5 or 6 different kinds. So I'm wondering if a review of that would be wise.
Can
One
Dan
of the-
do
one
that?
of- I'm sorry.
Can Dan do that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that is Dan's
Yeah.
Just-
project.
it was
But
his
one of the
baby.
suggestions that came up, I guess, out of the Wren training, something they've used in some townships is to have somebody, or sometimes a couple of people, take on each of these projects as a site steward, so that it doesn't fall heavily on the township people. And I think that that's critical to the success of rain gardens. So we need to maybe get Dan and someone else to sign on as site stewards. And their job would be to make sure that the township wasn't mowing things down, to make sure that the site was weeded, which the township is generally not equipped to do, and to look after a winter like last winter to see if things have died and need replacing. So I'm hoping that we can move in that direction on future projects, and maybe circle back to the Cowan Field project and get a site steward there.
Well, certainly Dan was the site steward of that for the first year while it was growing last year. He was watering it, remember that, and I remember he was talking about signage. I don't think the signage ever got up. Do you know? I don't remember, but I know at some point in time that you're supposed to mow it down, like when it gets towards winter time. So that kind of coordination would be perfect for a steward, like you're saying. Yeah. I'll ask Dan to comment on that. Okay, well, moving along to community environmental education and awareness. I don't have anything for that. That's usually something that I talk about, some school activities. Anybody else have anything they want to add to that section? And the liaison reports. Luke, thanks for coming.
Sure. Good to see everybody.
Good to see you.
For Parks and Rec, we're busy as usual. We have a presentation on the cell towers that are being proposed in September. We did put out a statement of considerations that we want the carriers to consider, such things as what are the towers going to look like, where are they going to go exactly, in what parks, what type of inconvenience or possible I hate to say it, destruction to the park is going to take place while they're putting these things in, things of that nature. We want to know what type of increased cell service this is going to provide, what cell service we have now, and there's several other considerations that we have out there. So in September, I think it's the middle of September, they're going to present to us, and we're going to pass on our recommendation to the Board of Commissioners as to what we think should happen with this. And we're not locked into any parks. We can recommend not to get them, what parks to put them into. We're not locked into anything, so we're going to hear what they have to say and make a recommendation to the board as to what we think should happen with them. So that'll be in September.
Do you have a sense of, is there a financial benefit to the township?
Yeah, and it's online. I don't remember the specific numbers. I have the documents here, but there is a financial benefit. Yeah, absolutely. So the manager would like to see it get done. I believe, I know of at least one commissioner who is not in favor of it, will not vote for it under any circumstances, but we're going to see what they have to say, and we're going to see what kind of proof they can give us as to where our cell coverage is now, which apparently is pretty bad, and from what I've experienced, it is pretty bad, but see what exact benefit it's going to give us.
You know, a trade-off benefit, independent of financial, would be that I think there's booster packs or repeaters or something that are mounted on utility poles. That's one strategy that sometimes a carrier will use to boost signal. And if you had towers that were not too intrusive, that might cut down on the booster things, which are in a minor way intrusive on someone's telephone pole.
Well, it's a good thing to remember for the meeting. And I'll certainly, I mean, I'll be back before then, but I'll certainly let everybody know when it is. Obviously, the public's welcome to come and hear what they have to say as well. So it should be interesting.
And so they approached Radnor Township surely because we're the single biggest landowner in the township. Right? That's why they came to us, because we're an easy target, as opposed to going to an individual business and saying, and negotiating a lease for them, and then going to another business, or then going to another residence. Is that why they're trying to come to us?
That's what I understand, yes. And also, emergency services have had issues, like in the Willows and places like that. They can't get any signals, so I think that's made its way, through the township out to these places. If we shut them down, the theory is they're going to go to Villanova, Eastern. That's the next stop for them. So, but we are the preferred entity to deal with.
3 years ago, we had an ordinance, a series of ordinances that we were looking at planning that we saw and have not seen ever again. And one of them was dealing with cell towers, and also whether or not you could put it on buildings, and
Right.
height of utility poles and things like that for these transmitters. And I don't know what happened to it. And I bring it up once every 6 months, and everybody goes, oh, we have all this other stuff. So that's what happens.
It just goes away.
So that means, though, that right now there is no ordinance that deals with this. So when you talk about going to a commercial establishment, it's probably an unusual or a special exception, or a use that's not covered in some way, and you have to get zoning to approve it, which would, in most cases, kill it. Whereas there is that ordinance that went out there, and then township property has a lot more latitude in the way they develop, which is why we could have a parking lot near the stream at one point.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I'm not sure I see why parks are a natural place to put these towers. I mean, the township does have quite a bit of property. Not all of it's, used for kids playing around, playing frisbee. It just, to me, it's not a natural fit to put towers in parks. And I don't know whether you're being asked to assess the decision of whether to put them in the parks, or essentially the decision's been made, they're going in the parks. And what are the considerations once they're there? Do you see what I'm trying to say? To me, it's not. It's sort of odd to think about putting, big structures in public parks on, when we have other property that seems to me a better fit. Has that been a topic of debate or discussion, or is it?
Yeah, I think that's the framework coming in, but we're not locked in. They pick those locations because they want the highest points in the township, from what I understand. So the one spot in the Willows is high. One spot in Fenimore Woods apparently is a good location. These are the prime locations from what the carriers are telling the township and us. But there's no, again, part of our job is to say, is that the best way to go based on what they give us? I don't know, and I don't know the answer to that. We'll see what they say, but no, there's been no commitment made whatsoever, from what I understand, by
They
the
aren't
township or anybody.
visually consistent with the Willows, with Fenimore Park. It's an odd odd
And
thing.
Ithan Valley's the other one,
Ithan, okay.
right up by the
Right.
476 right
Right.
there. So
Okay.
So we'll see. I mean, we also want to design consistent with, we don't want an ugly structure in the middle of the park. I mean,
Right.
that's not going to happen. So
Right.
from what I've gathered from talking with the rest of the board, we want something that looks like a tree and all that good
Yeah.
stuff, and make it as close to, make it as aesthetically pleasing as possible for everybody in the park is the goal, if that's where it goes. Again, we haven't heard directly from them at all yet. This is all from the manager so far in terms of what he's discussed with them.
Right.
So we'll see. It'll be interesting.
You would think that another location, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this because we have other things to say, but
Sure.
there's an awful lot of tall buildings. Why do you need a tower? And they're not in parks, but if you need elevation, that's that back to that commercial thing, but that would be less obtrusive with a 10 or 15-foot tower on top of a 90-foot building.
Right.
I guess the commercial people want more money than we do, maybe.
But that may be a better fit
It may be.
aesthetically, right?
Yeah.
We can always raise prices.
What about the sustainable parks policy?
What about it?
Well, it doesn't really exist yet, right? But how would this fit in if it did exist?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the sustainable parks policy was, how to maintain and O&M on our existing parks. That's kind of the way we were envisioning that.
Right.
And something like this kind of feels like it falls outside of that.
Well, I think it does raise the question of whether these are, how are they powered? Are there diesel generators attached? I don't know the details, but you could imagine a scenario that's not very sustainable or not very pleasant with respect to the experience of being in the park. Or do they? I don't know whether they have noise implications or safety implications. Are kids going to be scrambling up? I don't know. But it just seems to me that if we, I would want to hear that we explored all other options before they went into the parks, and here's why this is the best choice. And include, if it is in the parks, how it's going to be consistent with the enjoyment of the park, the environmental respect for the park, that sort of thing. So.
Sure.
Definitely, and if there's something that you feel like the EAC could help take a look at, as you're getting plans and everything, you could, certainly feel free. I think, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it'd be, something we could look at.
It fits our purview.
If there's
Sure, yeah.
if there's an environmental angle that you think is relevant, I think.
Don't forget, there's a financial angle too. So
There is a financial
yeah,
angle, but I don't
you
think-
might not want to see it in any parks, and you'd rather see it in the commercial area first. But somebody on the finance side here in the township might want to see it here first as a first option.
I totally
right?
hear you, and I think that goes to the question of sort of essentially a cost-benefit analysis. If it's a very, very significant amount of money, then obviously that means that various burdens make more sense. But if there's not that much money, and there's a real burden. I think the community as a large, should know about it and see if it looks like a reasonable decision is being made. But I hear you. It's definitely, something that has a benefit beyond.
Sure.
So those kind of decisions and discussions can happen after the September meeting.
Yeah.
But if it, and if you see something that comes along and it looks like, oh, this could have some environmental aspects to it, I think it's appropriate for us to take a look at it.
Yeah, I'm certainly going to pass on whatever info they give us, whatever we get from that meeting. I'm certainly going to pass it on. The sustainability is a good point to bring up. Looking at that and seeing how we can bring that in terms of the questioning. I mean, they're giving us the whole meeting as of right now is dedicated to the carrier presenting this and us asking questions and getting all the information we feel like we need to make a recommendation.
But I mean, is it fair to also ask the staff to be there to answer questions as to why parks? Why not buildings? Why not,
The township staff?
Yeah. And
Oh,
maybe
right.
they are, maybe they will be, and maybe this is very much on the agenda, but
Yeah.
to me, it's not,
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to pass on, we're going to pass on a recommendation, and, we'll see what the board does with it. But yeah, I mean, all options are out there. There's nothing that's locked in right now. We're not even locked into doing it. The board may shoot it down, and then, but like you said, or alluded to, then do we want to risk losing control over what happens after that? I mean, we still have control to a certain extent, but
well, there could be a suggestion, that maybe the approach would be a broader, ordinance or look at how to treat these towers in this township, separate from, let's put them in the parks. Let's look at, an ordinance that controls the entire, a
Yeah.
plan or here's where they should go. Maybe it turns out they really should go along, I don't know, railroad, I don't know where they should go, but, look at it more broadly, say, let's do a look at the overall township, where they should go, and be agnostic as to whether it's on township property, commercial property,
I'll ask Sue Stern is sort of our unofficial librarian on planning, and she came on at the same time I did, and so she probably has a copy of this, and I'll try to get it for the next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because there's also one on, and you guys will love this, there's also one on wind and geothermal, too.
Yeah, I remember we reviewed that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd like to see it, absolutely.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking more about this, but once we know a little bit more,
Yeah.
we can talk a little more about it.
No, it's an interesting topic, that's for sure. Moving on, the Willows RFP process, from what I understand there, I talked a little bit about what is going to happen with that. It's Jeffrey Miller Catering, and they are turning it into, a wedding type venue, parties, things of that nature. The lease was presented to the board, and they tabled it until, looks like next month or September. So I think there were some technical issues there. So
I have one question about that. Has there been any discussion about, I know they're planning to do gardening and farm to table, right? Has there been any discussion about whether that's going to be done organically? Can they use whatever pesticide and herbicide they want?
I don't know. I don't know what they've set forth about that. I don't know.
Is that I think clearly would sort of fall under the umbrella of this sustainable parks policy that is in its early stages?
Yeah, no, something definitely to ask about. So I'll ask at the next Parks and Rec meeting.
Luke, we talked a couple of meetings ago about this proposal about a stream cleanup, fishing wire project. I don't know if that was something that you had a chance to discuss or think about from the parks perspective. Is that?
Yeah, brought it up to Steve Norsini and Paul Basic. Mark Dominic's been out. He's got something going on, so he hasn't been around. But Steve and Paul have been kind of switching off and on the meetings. They said that they've addressed it. They said they've cleaned it up. They've added some receptacles. So they said Paul said he was getting to the Fenimore Woods Park cleanup, and Steve said that they were adding receptacles as well as at the Willows to make sure that that's not a problem anymore. So I plan to. We're going to go out. We're actually, as part of this, we all have divided up the parks. We all have like 6 parks that we look at. So I need to go check on that as part of mine. And actually, the whole board is going out to all the parks in late August. We're actually going to spend the day going to every single park, or most of them at least, to check them all out and make sure that all this stuff has been done. But Public Works is pretty good, so when they say they've done it, I generally find that it's been followed up on. So that's where those are, and then Veterans Park is coming along. We're having a neighbors meeting at the end of the, I think in a week. We're having a neighbors meeting to go over the final plan on that. to get that ready to go, and then the veterans are going to be doing the fundraising for that once they know exactly what is going to happen. It seems to go from the neighbors back to the commission to the, and they're doing that thing. It should be wrapped up hopefully at the end of this month in terms of the plan, and they are moving forward with getting Clem McCrone revamped, as well as the Eastern Gateway over there next to the train tracks, where they're going to try to clean that up a little bit. So
Luke, whatever happened to the eternal flame?
the Eternal Flame is going to be it's going to be made out of some sort of metal, so it's not going to be an actual flame. That was, I think everybody jumped on that one as soon as it was brought up. So it's a nice idea, but not going to happen. So, so that's where that is. Like I said, we are going to do a board trip out to all the parks at the end of August in about a month, and all the stewards of the parks, we are all going to hit our parks by the end of this month. I'm doing it this weekend. We're going to hit our assigned parks, look at everything, make sure that everything's been done, that has said it's supposed to be done, make sure they're all in order. And if there are any issues, we're all reporting back to Chris Campbell, who's going to put a list together for Public Works and the Board of Commissioners, because they want to make sure that we're revamping everything's being taken care of, and we're all going to make sure that it's being done in our parks. So,
Luke, I'd love to join you on the tour, particularly of Fenimore Park.
Sure.
We talked, I think, a little bit about the state of the
Yep.
pond and the filtration system, which appears there doesn't seem to be too much change in that situation. So I'd love to join you if that's possible, and we can look together at the situation. It looks like it's just sort of a stagnant water issue. So
yeah.
be happy to join.
Yeah, it looks like August 29th right now.
Okay.
And about Fenimore Woods, I've brought that up. They have their budget plan for different parks that are getting money each year. Paul and Steve have said that they think that's a maintenance thing that, they're going to get to. So, but I think you should come, and I think we should make
Good.
special, and that's going to be part of my report too on Fenimore Woods, because that's one of my
Great.
parks, is that when we get our final report over in August to them.
Great, thank you.
So that's where we are in Parks and Rec right now.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Skip, can you give us one on
Yep.
planning?
July is a, no pun intended, watershed month, because I think we're going to have 3 different public meetings in July. I know we've already had 2. The first one was largely dealt with the new SEPTA parking lot extension at Villanova and Cabrini. And as to Cabrini, we gave them preliminary approval to, or maybe it was preliminary and final, I have to double check that, to expand the Dixon Athletic Center, which was already non-conforming. But they've done a few things in the course of the review that are kind of interesting. They're putting some curbs on the main driveway to help do alternative retention, which is kind of interesting. And they're still trying to largely preserve parking that's not compliant with the ordinance, but since they don't need it, we'd rather have less impervious than more. The meeting on the 9th was dedicated purely and only to Ardrossan. We gave preliminary approval to their conditional use plan with a whole series of conditions. I haven't checked the status to see if it's going before the commissioners yet or not. And this coming Wednesday, on the 30th, we're going to see the Villanova University conditional use plan for the first time. And I just started to work on that because I'm back from vacation. So it would be premature to discuss it anyway. I mean, you'll have to watch the meeting. But that meeting is only on Villanova.
So that'll be the first time you've seen that.
No, I think it'll be largely a repetition of what I've seen, or
Oh.
we've seen before.
Okay.
I don't think there's any breakthrough stuff. I think we'll see for the first time where they propose to give up some open space because they're exceeding coverage limits and things like that. But, stay tuned. It'll be Wednesday.
Great, yeah. Thanks, Skip. Any old business?
I would like to raise one thing. Since when the stormwater ordinance was being passed a while back, we kind of talked about that.
Technically, every time this is discussed at planning, Steve will say, we don't have a stormwater ordinance so far.
We don't?
We have a stormwater user fee,
Well, so
but we
what
don't
I
have
was,
an ordinance yet.
okay, so, yeah, so what I was going to ask about is what I've been reading in the minutes of various meetings and how things are under discussion. Is there anything that we could or should weigh in on?
Probably, but the degree of difficulty is we haven't seen the final ordinance to give our review, and it hasn't been on our agenda in months. We had some little piece of one, and then I think it just got tabled. It never even got to a vote. It's apparently a big document also, but we haven't actually fully reviewed it.
Any old business? Or new business? No? Okay. We'll adjourn the meeting. There's no public comment, obviously, so we can adjourn. Thanks, guys.